Hello, one person. There's a little bit of a test here. Just seeing how YouTube Live works. Thank you for joining. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to just get this going out to some other people real quick. Post it in our little Instagram and whatnot. Hello, everyone. Hello, anyone and everyone joining. I'm going to quickly post this link. Whoa. Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to try and, Jesus, I don't know how to do any of this. This is a learning curve a little bit. Copy that link. I'm going to now put this on my little Instagram story. Thanks for joining, everybody. I'm just going to be answering some questions and stuff. If you have any, shoot them in that chat. Do this. I want to do a story. Create live on YouTube now. Hello, everyone. Hello. Done, and put up that link. Okay, almost there. Bear with me. Okay, and sending. All right, I think that's all done. I think I've done all this correctly. Let me throw this on this screen so I'm looking at you. And hello. Okay, here we go. Hey, Chad, loved your conversation with Bob, says Kennedy3978. Thank you. As you saw on the show, I did try. Rosha Q2Q says, Chad, would you be able to explain more about your nerd hobbies? I owned a tabletop gaming shop for 10 years. Would I be able to explain more about my nerd hobbies? This is 3 packs of Mercadian masks upside down, magic cards. Magic the Gathering is my nerd hobby. This is my, back here, Ognis, the Dragon Lash commander deck. I've got all kinds of stuff, all kinds of nerd hobbies. Gelfling 3077 says, I see so much of my parents and yours. I'm despondent about how my parents have fallen into the cult. It's helpful to know I'm not alone. I hope that you are feeling not alone. There are many of us, I think, in this situation right now. And, we got to do what we can do ultimately. At least I feel that way, because I do think there's going to be a time post-Trump when all of these MAGA people are going to have to return to their friends and their families. And it's kind of up to us to be there to receive that and not rub it in their face and, say, I told you so and all this. Bambi Landgrab 6048 says, does it hurt? Shit, it's going too fast. Does it hurt hearing the things your parents say, especially what dad says? Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've seen the show. Yes, it sucks. By the way, can somebody just real quick in the chat just put if you can hear me or not? Hopefully you can. I think that this is working, but I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Carp 1989. Jesus Christ, it's going too fast. It says, Chad, do you actually believe you can change your parents' views and mentality through conversation? Bob's decline is more than frustrating. Yes, I do. I think for my mom especially, it's going to be the case. I don't know about my dad. Like, I don't know. I have very mixed feelings about why my dad is the way he is with all this MAGA shit. There's some piece of me that's like, he's not really MAGA. Maybe that's my own delusion that it's kind of like this identity that has consumed him, but that these aren't his real views. I guess maybe that's the only way I can get through this, honestly. But yeah, I'm still, I remain hopeful only because just in the long span of history, politicians come and go, political movements come and go, political situations come and go. Once Trump is out of there, I don't think MAGA is going to have any juice. I really think he's the glue that kind of holds the whole thing together. And I'm still hopeful that he will be gone in 3 years or perhaps sooner. J Mess. Oh shit. How's that? J Mespo 83 says, is Ursula Vance? God damn it. This thing is Ursula Vance joining you today? Not yet. That shit made me laugh so goddamn hard. Ursula Vance, Ursula Minor. Bambi Landgrab 6048 says, "Are you gonna have Haley's son on? I'd love to hear a Gen Z perspective." I want to. I would love to have him on. He's such a cool kid, and I agree. I would love to hear what he thinks about all of this, and I think he wants to do it. It's just a matter of like finding the time because Sundays, as I understand it, are his study days, so we can't interrupt his studies. Maybe it'll happen during the summer. Um. Oh shit! I just saw one. God damn it! Where'd it go? Somebody said, what are your parents like pre-Trump?" If you go back and our first 3 episodes, our first like 100 episodes are only audio. We were not doing video, and even our first video ones are like pretty bad because we were just recording our Zoom, so they look like shit. But if you go back, if you want to know the answer to that question, what my parents were like before, not just Trump, but before they were like politically active, what were they like as kids and in high school and all of this? Our first 3 episodes are the first episode is just me and my mom, and I'm interviewing her about her life pre-Trump, you know, all that kind of stuff, basically. Episode 2, I believe, is my sister, and episode 3 is my dad, or I might have that reversed. But those first 3 episodes answer all those questions, or at least they do give answers. I don't know if it will be satisfactory. Those questions exactly are asked. So yeah, go check those out. They're anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, et cetera, et cetera. Boots and Cats 94 says, "Do you ever feel sad for your mom? My mom is so similar, and I know in her heart she means so well." Of course, I feel sad for my dad too. I just, or anybody who's like sucked into this cult. You're starting to see people, I think now, specifically in the news, they do this a lot, where it's like farmers or people who have small businesses or whatever, somewhere in America who voted for Trump, and now they're like, well, these tariffs are going to make us go bankrupt. They're kind of like realizing that Trump fucked them. My parents may be like a little more severe, I guess, than people who just voted for him because they thought it was going to be fiscally good for them or whatever the case may have been. But I feel sad for all these. I feel sad for all of us, for the entirety of humanity, because we're living under the crushing rule of these billionaires who control everything, including all political systems, obviously all corporations, how human society works. They are shaping how this whole thing is going. So I feel sad for us all. Um, one in Viz 25 says, "Hey Chad, I watch you guys weekly now and I absolutely love it. I'm a DACA recipient. Congratulations. And it hurts to see people like your parents want people like me gone. We are hardworking as everyone else." I couldn't agree with you more. Uh, I mean, if you've watched the show with any regularity, you know my stance on the issue. I'm all for dissolving even the idea of countries, let alone citizenship. Um, Drew Gretch or Gretch, maybe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. 2028 says, "What does the rest of your extended family think of the podcast?" I don't know, dude. I literally don't know. That's an interesting question. I might have to send some emails. I don't even know if they're aware of it, to be honest. There's not many of them left either at this point. Granny Minge says, "Hey Chad, you've mentioned you read books about mindfulness. Got any recommendations?" I mean, these aren't about mindfulness, but this is what's on my desk right now. The Premonition Code. This is a book. This is by Teresa Chung and Julia Mossbridge. This is a book about precognition, which is scientifically now being proven. This is a book called Consciousness and Reality. It's an old one. This one is hard to find, but it's got some interesting stuff in it about kind of 1970s ideas about consciousness. This is called the Silva Mind Control Method. This dude is how do you even explain it? Remote locator. He's into all kinds of weird consciousness shit. This is Journeys Out of the Body. Bob Monroe teaches you how to have out of body experiences. This is Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe. These are all the books that I'm reading currently. They're all, I mean, I think you will be more mindful after reading them for sure, because you're at least mindful of your own consciousness as you're trying to navigate whatever the fuck reality is. Rasha Q2Q says, "Chad, for the new book you're writing, will it be available in libraries?" I don't know. I think all my other books are, to some degree, depending on what library you go to. Libraries basically have to order books. So if you go to your local library and they don't have that book or any book that you want to read for that matter, all you have to do is ask them and they order it. Uh, 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 uh. Oh my God, it's Wolf23 says, "Hey Chad, um, oh, can I somehow put these messages on screen? I'm so sorry. I don't know how to use this quite yet. I will get better at this. Right now, I think it's just like a picture of me talking, but I'd love to be able to throw like comments up on screen. I will figure this out eventually. Um, but oh my God, it's Wolf23 says, first time in the live, your videos are deliciously frustrating. That's my dad. Delicious as a cavity. Um, let's see. Oh God damn, there's too much text. Sorry, it's going a little fast. Card V dash E3X says, would you ever bring a professional debater onto the show or a family therapist? I've been trying to get a family therapist. The scheduling is like it's difficult. Especially like trying to keep up with the pace of like putting out all the clips and cutting the show and getting the show out and stuff. Scheduling has become something that has like fallen by the wayside for me, unfortunately. But we'll I do want to do that eventually in the future. I would love to have more guests on, just generally speaking. Mm, 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 mm. TA2DMNKY says, hasn't Trump proven that reality is just what you tell people it is? I mean, I guess I don't think any of us know what reality is, honestly. At this point, I'm I'm pretty sure it's like one subatomic particle just bouncing around that makes up all matter. Ron Noosty says, "Hey Chad, your parents are in very deep. Do you see them ever coming up for air, or are you and Haley just coping with the so-called loss?" I do see them coming up for air. Maybe it's naive of me, but it's all I got left is the hope that like at some point at least my mom will return to a human being state. And to some degree that's what this podcast is like about, is just maintaining that connection. I All the stuff that I've read about cults and like trying to get your family members out of cults and stuff, it all kind of says like the most important thing you can do is maintain some kind of contact with them and not always be using that contact to be like, we're taking you out of this cult, but just to kind of like try to remind them who they are as a person outside of the cult mentality. So, I mean, I know we get in arguments with them, so I say that, and we actually are like probably doing a little bit of the opposite on the show. But uh, for me, it's having that kind of like weekly contact with them, I think is important. Um, let's see. How close are you with Haley? Do you guys talk outside of the pod? Asks Lucan, the Toucan 9700. Yes, we do talk outside the pod. We are pretty close. Boots and Cats 94 asks, what's your dad's relationship like with Haley's kids? I mean, you'd have to ask all of them. I remember when they were first being born, my sister lived in the same town as my parents, like minutes away from them, and my parents were kind of constantly at her house, and they were a little bit overbearing grandparents for sure. And I think my sister had to get some distance, but I don't. This is like my perspective of it. Please, you should ask Haley, and I know she's not here. Maybe I'll try as I learn more about how to use YouTube Live and stuff. I'll maybe try and have my sister in here with me, or maybe my mom and dad at some point too. Dina Marie 2091 says, "Do you think sometimes your dad says things just to get under your skin, or do you genuinely believe he means everything he says? They can drink the sludge, for example." This is a like in my head, I'm constantly asking myself the same question. Does he really mean, like today in the show, he told me that he was okay if I fucking die, if Trump ordered my execution at a mall with using the US military. And I'm like, does he really mean that? Or is he just being inflammatory? Is he trying to piss me off? The answer is I literally don't know. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. And in many ways, I think the show generally is attempting, at least for me, to answer that question in some capacity. Uh, Card V-E3X says, if y'all are in the same time zone, I would recommend asking Mary Lou to call onto the Dean Withers show. All right. Yeah, I love Dean Withers and all those guys who, debate people. Adam Mockler, he doesn't really do the debates as much, but like all the kind of like left-leaning YouTubers, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, they're all great. Wait a minute. Ken6318 is telling Magnanimous D, if Chad doesn't talk about aliens, I will be surprised. I like aliens. What do you want from me, man? I can't help that. Aren't we all a little bit curious? Supreme Leader 95541 asks Chad, why aren't you Christian? Because I don't think any religion quite has it right. I do think that there is some kind of like there's something more happening here than just like us walking around on a rock flying through space. I do think that is probably likely true. But is it like a Christian God and did Jesus die for our sins and all that shit? For me, that doesn't really answer my biggest questions about the framework of fundamental reality. And so it's just not a satisfactory answer to the question, what is this? That is why I'm not Christian, but to each their own. If it answers it, satisfactorily to you, more power to you. I think 90% of walking around on this earth is trying to figure out how to answer that question for yourself. And if that's an answer for you, enjoy. Um, hey, this is Andrew says, oh my God, it's going too fast. Yeah. Do you ever worry that some of the things your dad are saying is actually too dangerous to put out there? No, I don't, because it's part of what this podcast is. It is about like our family, obviously maintaining contact with each other. It is obviously about the two political ends of the spectrum, kind of talking about the issues of the week or the day or whatever. But it also, for me anyway, is about like documenting what I believe are pretty down the middle, average MAGA attitudes about all this shit. So it's like, every time you see my dad say something crazy, he's not the only person who thinks that shit. There's a big chunk of the MAGA universe that thinks it too. And so when he says this kind of like wild shit, at least for me who's making this show, and I consider it like all things that I do to be a piece of art, all the books that I write or the TV shows or whatever, I think this little thing is an art too, a piece of art, this project. And like part of it is for me documenting those attitudes. And so it's like if we kind of turn a blind eye to this or ignore it or say like you shouldn't be platforming these things, then it just festers in the fucking darkness and we get Donald Trump. Um okay. Oh, this is interesting. I don't know if anybody wants to hear this, but Cruis344 asks, what are my top 5 anime? I love Soul Eater is probably number 1. Hunter x Hunter is up there. Attack on Titan, of course. Uh Death Note. I don't know what number 5 is. I'll have to think about it. Oh my god, it's going way too fast. Bret Hart with an E, interesting, says, "Hey, you brought up your thoughts on more spiritual aspects, sending energy via dreams, everyone being the same consciousness. Can you recommend books, podcasts, etc. on these thoughts?" I did it at the beginning of this live. I held up a bunch of different books. So I think how this live works is once it ends, it will be recorded and put in our video feed, so you should be able to go back and watch this. It's like in the first couple minutes of the live stream, somebody asked a very similar question, and I answered it by showing some books. Old Fashioned Roses says, "Hey Chad, when you were growing up, did your parents have these same kinds of attitudes towards people, issues that they do today, or is this something that only started with Trump?" Um, this is another question that we answer in some of our very first episodes, but I'll answer it here as well. They My dad has always been like very adversarial and kind of like, just like mean. He's been a mean person basically for his whole life, but never like this. There was something that happened to Obama. I mean, we know what that is, right? It was there, or at least for my dad, his racism was like stoked to a level that I have never seen, and that kind of aggression, that hatred in him. And so his attitude about it, and I think because also it's a steady diet of Fox News that turned into Newsmax, and he doesn't know what propaganda is, neither does my mom. They just get fed this shit, and it's designed to turn people into MAGA supporters. And they're baby boomers, they don't fucking know any better. So they're victims of this to some degree too. I'm not obviously excusing their attitudes or anything, but I think, there's a bigger kind of system at work here, and it's easy to point the finger and be like, that guy's a piece of shit because he said this crazy thing. It's like, yeah, but it's because there's a giant multi-billion dollar industry that is literally designed to create people like my dad. people who are susceptible to propaganda, people who are susceptible to having these kind of like psychological things triggered in them at the most base level of fear and anger and aggression, and just this endless cycle of it. So I think that the my dad is kind of like, in my head anyway, a perfect example of somebody who was like just the right age, just the right like kind of angry white guy baby boomer to come along when social media was really starting to become the more prominent media delivery engine. So it was like no longer TV. And Fox News kind of went right into that too. They kind of became cable news, and social media are kind of like wrapped into each other. And so, for my money, that's kind of why it happened. Obama laid the groundwork for like Trump to come out, and his first real like political move was to say Obama was not born here. The whole birtherism thing, and my dad bought that hook, line, and sinker. And I think that's primarily why he is the way he is now. Because I mean, you see him when he's in this fucking show. Like, all I ask is an hour a week of him to sit there and like talk to his family, and he can't even do that. He's like glued to Newsmax. He's got to, he's looking over there constantly. And it reminds me a lot of like, if you ever go out to like dinner or something with a friend and you're talking to them, and every 30 seconds they're like looking at their phone. It's just this habitual, like, I must be glued to that thing, that cycle of media that is designed to keep me glued to it, which is the crazy part. And it's like he doesn't see that. Oh, mentally exhausting for you. Oh shit, this thing's going so fast. I'm trying my best to keep up with all this. My apologies. Ken6318 says, "Hey Chad, what's your thoughts on aliens and all the evil ritual stuff Epstein was doing with Ghislaine? Have you seen the artwork from his house? Appreciate you." Thank you. I appreciate you too, Ken6318. My thoughts on aliens are, I mean, I don't know that it's aliens, aliens per se. Like, are they creatures from another planet or multiple other planets? It's possible, I guess. But I think there are things I'm always like reminded of. There was some story that I read a long time ago that was talking about when uh, Native Americans first saw ships coming from out of the sea, and they were like, what the fuck is, like, their brain couldn't compute it. And there are even stories saying like sometimes they just wouldn't even see it because they had no idea what it was. And I think that's kind of what UFOs might be to us, that it's some kind of other thing that our brain just snaps into, like, oh, that's a UFO, but that's not actually what it is. I don't know. As far as the evil ritual stuff, I mean, there's all those stories of like Bohemian Grove and all these kind of skull and bones, like elite clubs of super rich, super wealthy families that have controlled human society since the dawn of time, doing all that shit. It's wild. I think that stuff is real too, to some degree. That, when you get into that club of people who control the world, I think those people operate in a way that's like, we're above any law, any social norm, any taboo. We could do whatever we want. And I think that plugs into it. And I have seen some of that artwork. Or I haven't seen it, but I've read about it. There's a picture of Bill Clinton like in a dress, a painting or something like that. It's pretty crazy. Okay. YouTube comments alive has slow mode. Yes, I've seen the slow mode, but I don't know. I can do this. I can handle this. I just need to get faster. I need more data. Put it into the brain. Dink Winkler 6382 says, "Do you really believe your dad is okay with you being killed?" No, I don't. I don't really believe it. Like, how can I really believe that and then keep talking to the guy? I think he is, again, like we talked about it a little bit in the show today, something that he completely ignored. I think a lot of his kind of psychological problems stem from the fact that he was adopted, and he has always kind of he spent his life looking for some way to validate his worth as a human being. And what he found very early on, I think it didn't come from his adopted parents. Like, I know that he didn't grow up in like a great family, but he found that worth early on in sports. And for him, sports set up this kind of worldview of like, it's me versus my opponent. I must win at all costs. So I think there's a piece of that in his brain that when he's talking to me and Haley on the podcast, we are the opponent in the game he's playing. He's got to beat us. And one of his favorite ways, honestly, to do it is to say this really cruel shit to us that puts it like, I'm right, you're wrong, and if you die, I don't give a shit. But I don't think he really means it. Um, whoa. Oh fuck. Ashton Butler NC7YZ says, "Do you guys ever have conversations about things that are said during the podcast, outside of the podcast? Do you ever confront hurtful things that get said in heated moments?" Yeah, there was an episode a long time ago where it was in a simmer down or something. I forget how this came up, but something about like our extended family got mentioned and my mom got super mad about it. And that's the only thing that I've ever edited out of a podcast was a conversation about our family. Forget my dad saying those Nazi shit, like all that goes in. They don't care about that. But from time to time that will happen. Generally speaking, though, no. Like whatever's said in the podcast is said in the podcast. And we will sometimes readdress it in the next episode, like we did that this week, with my mom demanding an apology in the Wednesday episode for me and Bob the drag queen, kind of like joking about her being a 70-year-old woman trying to run the social media for the show, and she was butthurt about it, and we talked about that this on today's show. So sometimes we do that. The Dear Leader 3265 says, "Hey Chow, any chance of getting Free Will on as a guest?" This, for those who don't know, I used to do a podcast called Dudesy with a good friend of mine named Will Sasso. And that is what this is referencing. Could I get Will on here as a guest? My honest guess is probably not. I don't think he would want to be a part of this one. Steph Stephanolopera. I have no idea what this is. Maybe it's Stefan Olapera 9575. I hope I'm getting that right. Says, "Hey Chad, your dad keeps calling you a communist, but he obviously doesn't know what it means. Can you please ask him to define communism?" We've done that. I've done that multiple times. There are many episodes. You can go back over the past, maybe like I would say within the last month, those episodes have probably aired. Yeah, we had that exact conversation, and he can't define communism, fascism, democracy, or a republic. He has no ability to define literally any of these things. So yeah, you can go check that out. Nick G-Z20 says, "Hey Chad, have you or Haley ever watched these two documentaries, The Brainwashing of My Dad and Outfoxed? Both are very good." I did watch The Brainwashing of My Dad and Outfoxed. Oh God, that sounds so familiar. Let me just Google this quickly to remind myself of what that is. Outfoxed doc. Oh yes, I did. The Rupert Murdoch thing. Yeah, I watched both of those. It's like there is stuff being made about what's happening to this generation and why it's happening. Profit motive, obviously. So it's not like we're not aware of this. And those two documentaries, I think, are good examples of it. And to some degree, this podcast that we're doing too, it's like there is a massive problem that we are going to have in America now forever unless we are able to actually have that conversation across the divide. Otherwise, there is just a generation of people who voted for Trump. And by the way, it's not just boomers that voted for him. Obviously, there are people of every generation voted for Trump, but primarily it's boomers. And are we just saying like fuck them? Let's wait till they all die, because that's what we're gonna have to do to get like Trump out of the public narrative. We're just gonna have to wait generations. That seems terrible. I don't want to live in this country for whatever, however many more years I got left. Maybe, fingers crossed, another 30 or 40. Pink Omega Lol says, "I truly believe your dad's sweet, like cavities. Behavior in the last episode was because of you contacting him in his dreams. Do you believe this or just coincidence?" I've thought about this, Pink Omega, so much. In our last episode on Wednesday, my dad was like kind of nice, and my mom kept saying, "He's been sweet for the past 2 days, sweet like cavities." This may be horrifying to hear. It's horrifying to say, but it's a thought that I've had. I think they might have had sex. Did you hear that? I think they did. I think they might have. Anyways, I'm sorry. My girlfriend just cackled in the other room at that. But I think that might explain it. I just can't wrap my head around it any other reason that he might have been that nice. No, not with that hip. Look, I don't wanna picture the style in which it might have happened, but it just I don't know, it makes sense to me. Um, because he doesn't smoke weed. I thought he was fucking high. That he was just sitting there like he was kinda glazed over. I think that may be it. Anyways, I'm not gonna ever ask them that. We'll see if my mom watches this, and then maybe she'll have something to say about it. But I'm never bringing that up with them, and please don't any of you bring that up with them. if if you would be so kind as to let that thought retreat back to the dark recesses of all of our minds. Um, oh god, Mary Lou rides horses. Just saying. Holy fuck! I should have said. I should not have ever said this. I'm so sorry. No. The adjunct GM2498 says sweet as a lollipop. I'm so sorry I said this. I've ruined my own life now. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Rosha Q2Q says, Chad, it's not a question, but I appreciate all your creative projects that inspires me. Thank you so much for indulging them. I hope they entertain. Oh, fucking shit. MXKV7533 says you got to delete the VOD now. I'm leaving it up. Fuck it. I think it's true. I think it's true. I don't know. I don't want to know if it's true, but so sorry. Giant movie nerd TM says, "What's your favorite movie this year?" I know you're a film buff. Shit, this year's almost over. What even came out this year? Movies I have liked. Sinners, I think probably is at the top of that list. That movie blew my goddamn mind. It was so good. I love Friendship. The Tim Robinson movie was one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time. I laughed really hard at that movie. I don't. There been a bunch of good ones, but those two kind of stand out to me as like pretty good, pretty solid ones. Okay. Oregon Grown 97045 says, "Have you shown your mom January 6th footage?" Yes, we did a Wednesday episode maybe a month ago that in which I showed her January 6th footage, like violent footage, because she's always claiming they let those people in there. It wasn't violent at all. And then I'm showing her footage of, like the dude kicking the shit out of the cop or the guy with the spear thing, shattering windows and stuff. So yes, um, she has seen it. She has seen it. Oh, Weapons. Yeah, Weapons was pretty good. I love the first two acts of Weapons. The third act kind of lost me when it changed to like a slapstick comedy. I was like, is this supposed to be creepy or whatever? Dink Winkler 6382 says, "Did you write Dudesy or was that actually AI?" You may never know. One battle after another. I never saw Beer Automata. Sorry. Axe Gamere says, "Hey Chad, what do you think about Trump's hold on politics worldwide and the recent swing toward hateful governments? Ireland has become very hateful against immigration since his new term." I think this is like a more philosophical question, I guess, but whatever. I think humanity is one thing. I think consciousness is one thing. So we have this kind of like idea of, in my mind, something that doesn't exactly exist, which is like the individual identity. Donald Trump, I don't, to me, Trump is just like, he's kind of like the most like out there example of aggression and fear and these kind of like negative psychological things that human beings have. But like you put whatever name on it you want. It's Hitler, it's Donald Trump, it's Stalin, that kind of like feeling psychologically in the zeitgeist emerges every once in a while and it drags people to that end. And then something horrible happens, usually a war. and then it all goes back because people are like, "Fuck, this went way too far," and then it swings back the other way. Hopefully, we're in an era where like a war like a World War II can't really happen again, but who the fuck knows? He's sending all the battleships to Venezuela and shit. I don't know. He's just blowing boats up out in the ocean, without any kind of congressional approval or knowledge at this point. So I don't know. But I think we're just in an era where there is a lot of change happening to kind of like the psychological landscape of humanity on the whole that is fueled by burgeoning technologies, social media, obviously, but AI. It's fueled by fear of economic and environmental collapse. It's just fueled by a lot of like huge things are happening and making these changes, and people get scared. So like when big change is about to come, and we can all sense it again in that like the giant kind of psychological bubble of all of humanity, fear starts to rise up because there's like the only thing that we're kind of like designed to do psychologically is survive. So if you can detect a threat, you have fear of that threat, and then you either run from it or fight against it. There are a lot of like perceived threats right now, and I think Trump, in quotes, the ideology of fear and aggression preys on that kind of stuff, and it says here's even some more. These immigrants are taking your job, and there's all these bad people, and there's Antifa, and that's just in America, obviously, but like every country that's kind of like moving in that same direction has a similar kind of like there's an enemy from within. We have to root them out. These other people, whatever the other people are the reason your life sucks. AI is going to take all your jobs. The world's burning down, blah, blah, blah. And I think when all of these kind of like change mechanisms are happening at the degree they're happening, it's easier for that kind of like piece of the general human psyche to take control. And I think that's what's happening right now. I hope that made any sense to anyone other than me. Okay. Pile 711 says your dad took all the shut up piggies like a champ. I'm blown away by the fact that he doesn't get pissed at that at all, and it does actually shut him up. It like works on him. I thought for sure he'd be like, "Stop calling me a piggy." He just but it works. He just shuts up. Unreal. Unreal. House of Bethy Cakes asks, "Are you still considering bringing a family therapist on the show?" Yes, I answered this question earlier. It's just a matter of like scheduling and how much time I have to put into this project. Scheduling is like a difficult thing to do because it also requires the scheduling of both of my parents and my sister and myself and the therapist, et cetera, et cetera. But rest assured, I am working on that. I'm going to try and get it to happen at some point. Gavin Young 8084 asks, when Trump leaves politics, do you think your parents' views will change? Yeah, I do. I just don't like Trump he's got that thing that all kind of like cult leaders, authoritarians who have been successful in taking over countries, he's got that thing that they have, this kind of like unending charisma and whatever, to a certain percentage of the population, obviously. I just think when he leaves, however that is, voted out, dies of natural causes or any other way, I just don't know who in the Republican Party has that same thing to galvanize it and be like, "Okay, well, now I'm gonna call reporters," like all the crazy shit that Trump does, no other politician could be doing. They would be immediately impeached. They would be immediately kicked out. I just don't think like JD Vance, he's going to carry the MAGA movement. I just don't think there's anybody who can do it. And so my parents will remain Republicans, but they're not going to be like JD Vance isn't going to be able to sell them sneakers and cologne and a Bible, It's I really think once he leaves, the whole machine kind of dissipates. And I think it's going to be difficult for people who have like closely aligned themselves with him to even have a political career in the modern Republican Party because they're going to have to swing back to a more like, George W. Bush kind of Mitt Romney-esque thing, I think. I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of how I see it going. Dink Winkler 6382 says, if you could have worked on one movie in history, what would it be? Simple. Robert Redford's The Natural. I played baseball all through high school and stuff, and even like well into my adult years in a adult league. I love baseball. and I would have loved to have been able to play baseball with Robert Redford in The Natural. That would have been dream come true. Um, Stretch Pig says, Chad, I'm around your age and my dad is similar to yours. Mine isn't nearly as angry or mean. That's good. But deep down, the Trump cult. But he didn't like Trump like 20 years ago when he was a corrupt businessman. It's okay, get this shit, Stretch Pig. When I was a little kid, my dad has always worked for like these kind of big oil and gas business type guys. And when I was a little kid, he worked for this guy named T. Boone Pickens. He was kind of like his right hand man for a while. And in service of that job, he, I think, met Trump a couple of times. And I remember as a little kid, he got me an autographed copy of The Art of the Deal from Trump. That book maybe is still somewhere at my parents' house. I have no idea. But my dad didn't like Trump either back then because he thought that he was like a shitty businessman. And my dad was like a big business guy or whatever. It's like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. Um, yes, Jim3619 says, "Oh my god, alive, how awesome." This is just a test live. I'm just kind of seeing how the software works and stuff. So I appreciate everybody in here indulging, helping me out, helping me figure out how to do this. I think I'm going to try and start doing maybe once a week, do one of these. Maybe it'll be on Sunday nights. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at scheduling and stuff. I just had a free 30 or 45 minutes here. So I thought I would give it a chance. Daily Flash says, "How can you respect your parents?" This is how, Daily Flash. They are human beings, as are we all. They are flawed. They have problems. They have been through their own experiences in life, some of which were not great, just like we all have. And I truly do think they're victims, of a system really designed to prey on their inability to discern propaganda from truth, to prey on their kind of innate fears and keep them angry and afraid. So I respect them because they are people, just like every one of us are, trying to get through this world, trying to live on this planet in the circumstances that we were born into. Dinkwinkler 6382 has a lot of movie questions. When you saw Burt Wonderstone, were you disappointed? Of course, that was one of the worst experiences in my life. That movie, by far, for a variety of reasons. Um, Mason or Masundmir. I'm so sorry, I'm mispronouncing this. Masundmir says, "What do you think could be the breaking point to break your mom out of the cult, especially after today's episode?" I think my mom is like, she's in the cult through just like constant immersion. There's always Newsmax on. My dad is always in her ear. I think if you took those things away, she would revert to the normal, just kind of a sweet old lady who likes horses and butterflies. I I truly believe that. I don't think she's like naturally politically inclined or to care about any of that kind of stuff, you know. Harry Buhner says, aside from Shohei Ohtani, who is your favorite ball player, past or present? George Brett, Kansas City Royals. He is one of the greatest players of all time, obviously, for his all of his batting titles, hitting 390 in what was it, 1981 or 1982, the closest to 400 since Ted Williams. But also, if you happen to look up on YouTube, look up a video called George Brett Shits His Pants, and he will be your favorite baseball player as well. uh, Oregon grown 97045 says, has your dad ever apologized to you for anything? Not that I can remember. It might have happened when we were kids after he did some like bad shit to us or something, but I sincerely doubt it. I have no memory of it. Maybe he did, but I have no memory of it. Amanda Pratt 3255 says, what is the best thing your sister has ever baked for you? She's never baked anything specifically for me, but she makes very good cinnamon rolls. Those are my favorite thing that she makes at her store. Eric Vaughn 8690 says, Chad, has it ever gotten superheated with your parents off the pod? I mean, of course, before the podcast started, there would be stretches where my parents would just, for my sister would get like a new tattoo and they wouldn't like it. And then they wouldn't talk to her for 6 months. But I'd be getting text, she's got too many tattoos. Your sister got another dog. That's too many dogs, shit like this. And so she'd be on their shit list for however long. And then I'd have to be like the intermediary. Then I'd be on the shit list for however long. Then she'd have to be, you know. So yes, our parents have gotten mad at us for like things that in my opinion are laughable. And then they wouldn't talk to us or they'd be super mad or, threaten us or whatever. Slabble says, "Do you ever think you'll start back up, dudesy?" I mean, it's hard to say. My gut says probably not. That show was a ton of work, and it was just a ton of work. JLM 3619 says, "Chad, do you think your dad might be developing early dementia?" We have had my family and I have had conversations about this. We've asked him to draw the clock, and he did it like perfectly. There have been certain tests, like he's going to doctors all the time for various things. So far, no. No one is saying that. You know what I mean? He's passing all the tests and shit. It's like I see what he's doing. I see the anger. I see, uh, we thought that too, but there is no evidence to support that claim at this point. Okay, everyone. It has been 45 minutes roughly. Um, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's going so fast. Blah, 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 blah. I just want to thank everybody for joining me for this first live. Like I said, I'm going to try and do one of these a week, I think, and maybe have my sister on or somebody else on or whatever. I'll try and figure out what these live things should be. But thank you for joining me for this one. And yeah, I might try to do them on Sunday nights. I might try to zhuzh this up a little bit, get some streaming software or something going and really figure out how to do this. But again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And now I have to figure out how to turn this live off. What do I do? Okay, end stream. I'm ending the stream. Thank you again, everybody, for joining me. And we'll be back on Wednesday with something. And we'll be back next Sunday with something and probably another live next Sunday as well. Thanks for joining me.